I chose to be part of this Bali Vegan Festival. One, it's a great excuse to come to Bali, of course. Especially Ubud, it's always reinvigorating to come here. It's like you get your fuel of if ever you have a doubt of where this movement's going, and if it's not happening, come to Ubud and you see how fast and how powerful it is, and surround yourself with incredible, awesome people, community, the energy, and to listen to other great speakers and meet other awesome people. I presented today the storytelling aspect of activism, how to be a good storyteller and the greatest story ever told, which is this movement that's happening right now. And just tricks and things that I've learned, tips along the way from some of my mentors and people I've studied to show how to incorporate that into activism.
Okay, I'll see that.
All right, thank you for coming. Thank you so much for the Bali Vegan Festival. It's so cool, and I really like, I don't hardly do any talks, by the way, so it's still enough. I should be standing or sitting? Standing? Okay. I like that you called it the Bali Vegan Festival, and that's very bold. There's a lot of places that call the Veg Festival or something like that. And the goal too is to have the word vegetarian be the true meaning of vegetarian. And Sharon Deanna, if anyone knows Jivamukti Yoga, she will only use the word vegetarian because one of her things that she wants to do is get that into our consciousness that there's only one thing, vegetarian is vegetarian. So why storytelling? Everything is telling stories. Everything is about selling the greatest story of all time. What's the greatest story ever told? Jesus, the Bible. Greatest story ever told. So everything is known that's told the story. So I just have to say too, since I don't do many talks, a lot of this is what you're going to be hearing today is these nuggets of information that kind of came to me and I've learned through life. So when I'm traveling a lot, I'll jot stuff down. And I haven't really done too many. This is only, I think, my second talk all year. So pardon me if I have to use just notes on my phone, but I just want to make sure you have them all. Normally, if you have things to take notes, I recommend there might be some good stuff. But anyway, the greatest story ever told is selling. What Christianity? Everything's a story. So it's so important to really know how to tell the story of what we're doing. This is the greatest movement of all time. We can go into a little bit later. And we have a story to tell. And we are part of that story. We are the heroes of this story. And whether it's you're sitting with your friends or you're sitting with your family members, it's telling the story. And whether it's a personal story or one for the animals, one for the environment, it's about telling a story. So I think a good way to start is on the way walking, I just got here yesterday. I've been waking up at like 2 a.m. just lying in bed. But on the way to my place where I'm staying, there's this little chicken and a baby chick, and I thought it was so cute, and I filmed it. And then I woke up today, and I realized, wow, this kind of sums up everything about what I'm kind of talking about. It's a good way to start. And I'll tell you the story, the true story of what you're going to see. It's only 1 minute, and I'm literally making this up as I see it, but it's the true story. So if you can you play it? So it's a story of Cecilia and her son, Nugget. And so this was just right off the main street, and that's Nugget, that's Cecilia. And it started out really, really sweet. Nugget had two brothers, 2 sisters. And Nugget was made fun of because he was the runt of the family. And this is only after a few days. In chicken years, one day is like, a few years. So Nugget got made fun of, but sadly enough, what happened is 2 of her sisters got run over by a car, and her 2 brothers, one's disappeared and one got eaten by a cat. And so now there's only Nugget and just her mom. And then what's really sad about this is that her mom does not want to tell Nugget that she does not have much time to live because she's almost at that certain weight. And even more troubling is that this is her last child that she's taking care of. And as you can see, she's super frightened because she already has most of her kids taken care of lost. And what's even sadder is she doesn't want to tell that her son is a boy, a male chick, and that once he gets found, he's going to be killed when someone captures him because no one wants a rooster. So that's the sad story of that. It's one of those telling the truth of really what you're saying, and it just goes to show one of the things I was talking about, I mentioned I have a lot of notes, that a big thing in telling our story, and you saw this with Okja. Did anyone see that film? It's a classic hero story, and it's all about humanizing these incredible animals, and that's one of the amazing things to do if you're telling the story of our activism. So I'm going to go through a few notes and just power through them, and I want to do a Q&A after. So the big thing to do is, if you want to tell a story, and whether it's just an Instagram or a few minutes or telling friends about the story of how to, of our purpose, is become a student of documentaries and student of storytellers. I am infatuated with stories. I'm infatuated with storytelling. I watch 60 Minutes of how to take interviews, if anyone knows that in the U.S. Bill Moyers, I read Joseph Campbell, is anyone familiar with him? The Hero's Journey, and watch documentary, how to make documentaries. Has anyone heard of the Masterclass? It's only $99, and there's one on Werner Herzog, who does documentaries, he's an amazing filmmaker, and James Patterson, who's the most top #1 best-selling author of all time. He sells more books than anyone in the history of time. And at $99, he'll tell you exact secrets of how to tell a story. And things like this, I just dive into and I incorporate them into activism. I incorporate that in these films. And what's amazing, again, the greatest story ever told is the story that we are living right now. And it's going to be in history where this is going to be the final story that makes the greatest story ever told, which is the Bible, the final chapter of this, because everything in the Bible, if whether you believe it or not, the story is about returning to the Garden of Eden. We started in the Garden of Eden, and then we lost our way, and the return is getting back to a vegan, compassionate world where we love all animals, where lions, sleep with lambs, and so we're part of it. So it's real important to tell. A big thing that I've learned with storytelling is that there's always a victim and perpetrator, and we talk about this in Cowspiracy. Who knows this best? Greenpeace, Sierra Club, the environmental groups. They know there's a victim and perpetrator. The only thing that they don't want to tell us, which was the inspiration to make those films that got me real pissed off, was that they don't want to tell that the perpetrator is us. So they'll use something where it's an oil industry, or it's Donald Trump, or it's something else, when sadly enough, what they're discussing in the environmental world is that we are the victims. But in storytelling, it's a very, very super effective way to tell a compelling story. Everything, Marvel Comics, you name it, Star Wars, they all have a victim and they have a perpetrator, they have a hero and they have the enemy. And so these things, where it's on purpose or not, you see elements of that in Cowspiracy. It's not necessarily the enemy, but the environmental community. They are, are they the victim or the perpetrator in causing or being a part of the world's greatest destruction caused by animal agriculture? And my opinion is that I would think that this world might be a little bit off if there was no Greenpeace, if there was no Sierra Club or Rainforest Action Network, because they're diverting all the attention away from the world's biggest problem there is. There's all these minor issues are very important, but when you're not taking care of the biggest issue in the entire planet, then is it helping society or is it hurting it? But a big thing to realize, when you're going into storytelling and writing stories, is the victim and perpetrator. And I highly recommend read Joseph Campbell's book, Power of Myth and the Hero's Journey. And also show the adventure and emotion story behind this. Show the adventure and the emotion and the story behind the story. So in Cowspiracy, half of it is making the film along with what the film is about and what the health you see as well. So part of it is following a journey, have a narrative. All these things in these two films have been out there. There's a thing called Meet Your Meat. There's Meet the Truth. Some people were mad when Cowspiracy came out. They said, "Oh, there's Meet the Truth. It's already came out." The differences between the two films is one is a narrative and one is just telling information. You have to tell a narrative and a story arc, and that's the way people digest information best. It's something that we're familiar with from the end of time, from folk tales. That go on for thousands and thousands of years. So realizing that, and then also showing the story behind the story. Every film that we do now, we have people film themselves doing a documentary of actually making the film. And then it turns out, like we're making Seaspiracy right now, and that's a perfect example of the story of making Seaspiracy is probably as important as the actual information. And as far as the entertainment value and as far as the true story. And if anyone has seen The Cove, That's why that film was so effective. It's one thing about the dolphins being slaughtered, but it's about him reaching that point of, following that adventure, the hero's journey. He is the hero on the journey. So all these things go back and back to the hero's journey, and that's what Joseph Campbell talks about. So studying that and how the arc of the 3-act series goes, it's very standard. And again, this is whether you're just doing Instagram posts or small posts, or films or anything, or even telling a story to your friends. And last night I was lying in bed at 3 a.m. I haven't slept much because I'm on opposite time. I looked up the shortest story ever told, and I read that Ernest Hemingway, he bet someone that he could tell a story within 6 words. Has anyone heard this before? He could tell a story within 6 words and make you cry. And so his friend bet him $50, and the story is for sale, baby shoes, never worn. And so that's one of those things, is like getting into story, like how raw that is, and then you just drop it, like drop the mic. How much is in there? And a lot of it, I learned this ironic from Jerry Garcia, is it's not the notes that you play. I always play, so a lot of times you have too much information. It's the notes that you don't play. It's the ones where you hold back. So really realizing where it's one thing to put everything in there, even though, say, What the Health has a ton of stuff in, you drop it out of what, say, the information overload, and take it to a different emotion, take it to a different direction. And so a lot of people say, your films are so sensational, like in a negative way. And I say, thank you. That's a compliment, because that's the goal of telling good stories. You want it to affect all your senses, all your senses and all your emotions. And when I was lying in bed, I'm like, it'd be interesting to do something, not only if you could cry, but something that maybe starts off funny, has a story arc. So I came up with one, was, what was it? Lost clown, last seen in tears. And then I try to think of a carnivore one to veganism, but I can't remember right now. But anyway, playing around with that of telling a story in as little few of words rather than overdoing it. Big thing with documentaries, and when you're making a film, especially with documentaries, is you are allowed to recreate some things. You can't get everything on film. Sometimes you don't catch everything, or sometimes, as in Cowspiracy, I've been vegan 10 years. That very, very first part is what happened to me 10 years ago. And when I said that, I was trying to contact those organizations for months. I was contacting those organizations for 5 years. And they were the inspiration. They were the inspiration for making the film, is their betrayal. It wasn't even the fact that all the facts that you see in Cowspiracy, that was great that we got that out. The inspiration, motivation for that was actually the Greenpeace and Sierra Club's not answering me. So we recreated a little bit of that, the first part, and almost every single documentary does that. You don't just go into a documentary not knowing, like, oh my gosh, So I play somewhat of a character at that very first beginning, and then it's all real. It's all a true story. The beginning is a true story. It just happened, 10 years ago. So be okay if you have to recreate something, as long as it stays true, and as long as it's true to the narrative, especially if it's documentary. And everything in both of those films is 100% true. And the big thing too is go deeper. Where's the rest of the story? So the whole thing with, say, Cowspiracy is that could have been done in a way with not, you feel the victim and perpetrator. The perpetrator is the animal agriculture industry. Or when people are all dying of cancer, it's the tobacco industry, but it's not. It's the people who hide this information from us. The twist on Cowspiracy is that, ironically, it's the environmental groups that are the one that are betraying us. So to show that betrayal of something that no one else can think of, that's a big key in this. Taking things from a completely different side, turning it upside down. Where is the real story that people are talking about? So an example, just last week, I was in LA at they have the Jewish bizarre ritual once a year, Kaparat, where they swing a chicken 3 times around the head. I don't know if they do that anywhere around here. 3 times around the head, and then they kill it in a really bizarre way. But they pray for it when it's around 3 times, and it's supposed to abolish their sins, and the sins gets passed on from them to the chicken. So there's a lot of activists there, and I was documenting it for basically our next film, but I wasn't there for what everyone else thought the story was. Everyone thought the story was the story. This is a bizarre thing. What are they doing? What I saw the story is that across the street was basically Pollo Loco, which is a KFC, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so what I wanted to do is, rather than get this side of the vegans and the activists, I was actually talking very politely, and I was very curious to hear what they would say, and I knew what they'd say, and it was very compelling. They said, "Why are you guys here when we're praying for this animal? We're treating it with respect before we kill it, and then when we kill it, we actually give it to poor people, to the poor community of the Jewish community." The last part isn't true, but then historically that's what happens. Why aren't you guys going over there where you're eating? We weren't, because we're vegans, but everyone else is eating meat. So if you're against that, how could you? If you're against what we're doing, there's no way you can eat meat. And they were surprised that we're all vegan because they thought we all eat meat. But again, showing that other side of the story that you wouldn't really think of. It's all about turning things upside down, and that's basically the theme of the two films that we made and the few that are coming up. Finding things that no one else really thinks of, and then exploring that and going way, way deeper than you would think initially. And then a big thing is show analogies. Analogies are a huge one. We have Cowspiracy and What Health is full of analogies, animations and comparisons. There's so many, so important to do this, to make it very lively, hit all the sensations, do a roller coaster of emotions, play with analogies, play with animations, play with comparisons. It's a huge thing. It's one thing to hear how many acres of rainforest get killed a year, but then it's another one to realize one football field gets taken away 1 second every single second of the day, and that's something that you can grasp onto. So that's a big secret of how to be effective storytelling, is use analogies, animations, comparisons. And the other thing is, the way to practice is just to start by doing. I saw, almost everyone here that's ever done any public speaking or YouTube channel, what they do is you just jump right into it. Is you have no idea what you're doing, and you just start doing it. And the way I started doing it is I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. I took just one class at community college, directing, one production, and one editing. That's it. And then I grabbed a camera and started going to weddings, and people I didn't even know. And I would show up. I said, "Can I shoot your wedding for you?" Even if they had one, they're like, "What are you talking about?" "Yeah, for free. Can I do your wedding for you?" And it's so huge to do weddings, because wedding is a perfect story. You're capturing such emotion, and you're capturing the highs and the lows of even the sad parts where the father's giving their daughter away. And this is all real time, especially if you don't know who the people are. You have to be so on top of your toes. And not only on top of your toes when you're filming this, you have to realize not only, this is a big thing with just filming, not only what your subject is at front, what the obvious one is, who could be behind it, and then who can be behind that. So obviously, there's landscape when you take a picture. But always look 2-3 deep. And you can't do this the first time. So a perfect example of this is in Cowspiracy, where the tough part of filming it, but you're just kind of in a zone of having to do it, was when the duck got killed. And if you watch that part again, that was from experience of being at weddings. That entire shot is not only, say, the chicken, but then also it's zooming in and behind, it's perfect angle. And one of the saddest parts in the whole film is where the other chicken is looking at that dead chicken who's being sliced. And then the other one was, I was filming the other guy talking about it, and I realized, I'm like, oh, there's that daughter. The daughter, if you saw the daughter at the beginning of before the camera started rolling, she was playing this real tough girl, like she wanted to be there, and she's like, oh, this is who I am. I'm a tough person. I can see the slaughter. And once it's about to happen, she ran to the back. And so filming him talking, realizing she's in the back, and then zooming in. So always look 2-3 deep, and then practice with weddings. And the big thing with practicing with weddings is editing. Everything is editing. The editing is the biggest secret in all of storytelling, because anyone can shoot a ton of great footage, but it's just like you playing a bunch of great, beautiful notes and then throwing it into something and saying, come out with a composition of a masterpiece. it's all about editing. Everything is editing, timing, pace. You're the composer. You can have hundreds of hours of footage, but you have to know how to tell the story arc. So the best way to practice this is not only on your own YouTube channels, but doing weddings. It's a great way to practice this. And then also too, when just effective storytelling as far as the whole social media scene, I don't do much social media at all right now, mainly because we're in the process of making the third part of the trilogy, and I'm doing some other things as I'm so focused. That's why I don't really do any talks or anything. You won't see me much, at least for another year or so, and then I'll be doing more. But social media is obviously the biggest, so powerful way to tell your story and to get this word out of this incredible vegan movement. And there's one thing to do. You have to be honest, but I believe in doing clickbait things. Some people don't like when are you getting conned into that. My thing is that we have to put out as much content as you possibly can. On an activist side of this is, everyone has their judgment of what's the correct way to be an activist. DXC, Direct Action out of Berkeley. I'm sure you know them. It's like super militant, and they go in and scream at people's faces. Most people are against those. But the big focus is, whether you're against it or not, is rather than putting your energy on what they're doing, whether it's good or bad, worry about what you're doing. Because a good example of that is Keegan went vegan at the age of 13 from going to a punk rock show and a guy yelling at the top of his lungs, he was a straight edge animal activist, screaming at him like, fuck you, go vegan, like this, where it'd be 0.01%. 0.01%, if not less, of anyone I've ever met that would actually go vegan because of this, yelling in his face at a 13-year-old. And Keegan, the co-producer, co-director, none of this would be done without him. Work hand in hand with both these films. He went vegan like that at 13. He is the reason why we made these together. It took me about 3 years, and then finally when I met him, we just worked so well, perfect together. And so that could have been Direct Action Networks to some 13-year-old kid. It doesn't always trigger someone who's older because you have that, but sometimes kids, they want that rebel, they want that rebel thing. I want to be part of that. And that's why, because I live in San Francisco, I moved to LA, and I see people talk badly about them so much, but they have a younger demographic, and people sometimes, that you're a rebellious teenager, and you never know what's going to happen. Not everyone likes classical music. Not everyone likes hip-hop or techno. So the activism is so important, and when telling stories, that tell it from your heart. If you're into that, then tell it in that way. Do something. I'm waiting for like a more hardcore punk, almost like a Vice punk documentaries to come out more so than they are now, that tell the story of so many parts of this activism world, say their story. But anyway, the point of that was to realize that everyone has a different trigger, and just use yours from the one that comes at heart, and don't think you have to do it in a certain way. And don't worry about what someone else is doing and judge them. The point is you have to do something. You have to do something. And then a big thing, like I was mentioning before, is I study successful documentaries, successful interviewers, and dive into how to tell stories. So obviously just be a student of telling stories. And the best way to do that is through these Instagram, really, 1-minute posts, and through YouTube channels following videos, because they tell a story sometimes, and the most compelling ones are viral, all within like 30 seconds or a minute. And then it's always good to have a few pitches, I wouldn't say gimmicks, but a few hitches. Has anyone seen Gasland? It's one that won the Documentary Academy Award a few years ago. It was about how fracking was in America. And that film was but its success was because he went to somewhere in Colorado, and when he turned on the water, flames came out of the sink. Flames came out, and that was in the trailer. And that's all of a sudden, boom, overnight, at least in the US, that became a huge film. And Blackfish, most of you seen Blackfish, where the Shamu, or one of the mothers of the killer whales, was screaming for her baby, and you saw that part. And it's like one of those things. And then Cowspiracy, we have a few of them with not only the duck getting killed, triggering that emotion, but following it right up after that with rescuing the chicken. These triggers that just go at a core level and tapping into everything, every sensation and every emotion that you possibly can in this story. And that's what makes an exciting story. And the big thing with what we're doing is humanize animals. Like that thing, the little clip that I show, that could literally turn into, and it could be a real documentary like that, where it literally could follow them and follow some other chickens and tell the story that National Geographic does and all the animations do, is humanizing animals or the Amazon or whatever your subject is. And it's just so effective, is humanizing animals, because that's what they need. They don't have a voice, so we have to be their voice for them. Other than that, there's a lot of people who realize when they do their own YouTube videos and their own stories, is coloring and music plays a huge role. Little things that you might not realize when you watch Cowspiracy again is we're really into coloring. Key got me really into coloring, and then we got into it. It has its own feel, for one, its own different twist of how we color. And we luckily, we both like the same saturated feel. But Cowspiracy, we play with not only music, to play with the emotions, also with the coloring. It gets light at the beginning and then starts going darker, 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 darker. And literally to the point where in the coloring after effects, we play with the point where it goes around Howard Lyman and the chicken slaughter and all that. It gets dark, like literally in post-production, we get it dark. And all of a sudden, poof, it opens up. And then that last 15 minutes, it gets really bright. And we do a little bit of that in What the Health, but a little bit more in Cowspiracy. So playing with the colors, playing with your palette, playing with your tools. Music is obviously a huge one. So playing with music, as you can see, one of those things when you watch other films, every time I watch film, I'm not even seeing what's happening. I'm always listening, especially when I'm editing. I hear what the music is, I'm looking at the coloring, seeing the tempo of the edits, slowing edit, and then it goes faster and faster. So all of those things are just fascinating to me. And to be a good storyteller, again, even if these are only 1-minute videos that you do on YouTube, to really pay attention to this. And then share, this is more, start into more of like being activism in general. A big thing that I think was successful with our films is that I have always purposely, when I come to this movement, I saw that a lot of people stay in their vegan bubble. And I realized that we have to see from their side. We have to see from the side that we used to be. And we have to be not only compassionate to that, but not only see it, be active in it. So when I was vegan, it's been 10 years, the first year or two, I was super pissed off, and I just couldn't believe I wouldn't go to Thanksgiving and the whole thing. And then not only to learn how to be a good storyteller, but to be a powerful activist. And then one time, I wasn't going to go to Thanksgiving, and finally I did. It was a big drama. I had family come in. And my 6-year-old, at the time, 6-year-old niece, who's the sweetest girl in the world, was sitting down for Thanksgiving, and it's awkward that I'm there because at the last second I came. And so they're doing their prayers and stuff, and then all of a sudden, her name's Peyton. She looked back at me. She's like, "Oh, I can't wait to eat this turkey." And I was like, at that time, I did not want to go because of this. And for this 6-year-old sweet girl to say this, I almost walked out right then. But thank goodness I stayed. I didn't say anything. I wanted to slap her. I of course wouldn't do it. She's so sweet. It was just so bizarre. And I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. 2 weeks later, I get a call from my sister, and she says, "Guess who's vegetarian?" And that's when it really hit me, is not only are you a witness by just being present, I didn't say one thing, is that when you hear these weird things that people talk about, when they're immature, these immature things like, she's only 6 years old, but as I'm sure all of your friends have done to you who are vegetarian, they revert back to themselves when they're at that age where they got jaded. And they have a stunt, and that's called a disconnect that our next film is going to go into. It's a disconnect that it's around 8 years old or 9 years old, where they literally turned off that emotion. And then when they do these, immature things, "Ooh, I'm going to eat this meat. I can eat 2 pieces of hamburger just because you're here." That is an 8-year-old. That is literally a 9-year-old, 11-year-old. And that's what they're reverting back to. And so now, after that happened, I would never go to a barbecue. Of course, I didn't go to these things. After that, I say, you know what? To be an activist, this isn't about me. This is not about me. It's not about what I want to do. This is about something greater, not only for the animals, but for the planet and everything, the evolution of us humanity. So then after that, I purposely would go to every barbecue that I kind of got invited to or didn't get invited to. And I don't say anything. Now, it's a joke, because back, it was 8 years ago before I did any films. And it's so funny. Just have fun with it. Don't literally be smiling. You'll be smiling inside. Of course, it's sad. You're seeing dead animals. But just being there and the awkwardness, I don't know, I guess that's why I'm good with these interviews. Keegan cannot stand the awkwardness of it, but getting used to that awkwardness, not being afraid to jump yourself in a situation of being an activist, being a witness, but not only that, listening to what they have to say. Cowspiracy would not have been made if I didn't do these things where I talk to people, and the reason why it's made is I do kind of play a character as me 10 years ago. Before that, I was a meat eater, of course. I want to see where they're coming from. And so my character literally goes at the beginning of the film, says, take my hand, let's go on a journey together. And the triggers I learned from that was my friends and going to these things. So I think it's a huge part of activism is step out of the vegan bubble, attend these, talk to your friends, go to things that you wouldn't go to restaurants that you wouldn't go to if you're invited. It's a steakhouse. You can find a vegan meal anywhere. I literally, when someone says, they come to town, they're like, where can we eat? And I say, we can literally go anywhere. And then if I do go to steakhouse, that's why I don't even actually say vegetarian restaurant, because on my own, I do support the vegan, I do support the vegetarian restaurant. But another thing of activism, this is what Israel does, is I'll go to a steakhouse, and I'm there as an activist. I purposely say to the waiter, make a big scene, what do you have vegan here? He's like, you're a steakhouse. Well, can you please ask the chef? Maybe something where, it'd be good to have a vegan menu. It's 2017, you understand? In a nice way. I usually just say, can you ask the chef? Can you ask the manager? Next thing you know, it triggers around the thing. And if you could do this 2 or 3 times the same place, next thing you know, in a few months, they're going to have a vegetarian option. So is anyone from Israel? That's it? Wow. So this is the other vegan capital of probably the entire world. Israel is off the charts, unbelievable. And what they did is my friend Omri, he started, I can't remember what it's called, whatever their activism group is. Vegan friendly? Yeah. And so what their first thing he did, and this was only a few years ago, he had and they started out as just a few people, not even that big. They started relentlessly calling every single restaurant in Tel Aviv and saying, what vegan options do you have? People going to the restaurants and then asking. They did this for a few months. And then all of a sudden they did the ground troops and they came in very nice and they said, hey, we're part of a vegan-friendly group. We're here to help you just have some few vegan options. If you do this, we're going to put this little heart. See, actually, it's a pretty big heart with a circle or the V or whatever it is. It was a couple years ago I was there. And we're going to put the sticker on because there were so many vegans, yada, yada, yada. Your sales are increased by 15 to 20%. If you do this, we're going to put you on the website. We're going to push you on Facebook. Like, oh my God, that's so crazy. We've been called all the time lately. Veganism must be just taking off right now. And this is why Israel per capita is the fastest growing I think per capita, other than like Berlin, I think it's quite a bit more than Berlin, vegan community in the entire world. It's because of this. So they're doing things where creative, in the way that's even storytelling of doing things that you would not normally think of, and to realize doing things that you don't necessarily want to do. Again, by going to a steakhouse and doing this, going to barbecues. This isn't about us. This is about something, the higher selves of who we are, and it's really about the animals and about the planet. So I think that's a big thing that I've learned from kind of being in this movement for a long time. It's kind of a diversion from storytelling, but that's what I was saying. So let's go through a few more of some things I've learned other thing is collaboration. Collaboration is key. Collaboration is so key. Find someone who is not the same as you. Keegan and I, we are so different. For about 3 years, I was working on Cowspiracy on and off, and it was with people I work well with, or with people who are on the same, or the same energetic level, or whatever, this, and that. And I met Keegan, even though we're like brothers, and in some way we're similar at that core. Thank God we can work together really, really well. We're very, very different. I'm a lot more open, trying to push things out there, and he kind of keeps it back, keeps it narrow, pushing out, keeps it narrow. So together, we work really, really well. So whatever your negatives are, find their weaknesses, find someone who that's their strength. Collaborate if you don't fill every single, I say club in the bag. I'm a big golfer, not so much these days, but you need all the tools. And all the tools is collaboration. And what we are on this planet while we're here is we're simply just, we're the tool for our higher selves. We're the tools for animals. And who you are right now is not who you are going to be in the future. Is right now, you're just the tool to get you to that next level of who you're striving to be. So you have to develop your tools. You have to develop every single thing that you can have, you can possibly make. Get all the bags in the club, the macro, let's say the macronutrients, the micronutrients, the driver, the putter, every single possible thing in your arsenal so that you have all of this to create exceptional, beautiful things. And a lot of that is through collaboration because you aren't going to be a good putter and a driver. So you find those different tools, put them all together, and I cannot overstate collaboration. I was trying to do Cowspiracy for, say 4 or 5 years, and then a few other people. I was trying to do it all on my own, and I realized I can't do that. So a lot of people try to do it all on your own. Definitely collaboration is super key. A few other kind of tidbits that come up with this movement too is I don't believe in try, I don't believe in hope. I was watching James's one of his talks the other day, and he was talking about how he got into being an activist. You don't try, you don't hope, you just do. And if it doesn't turn out, then it doesn't turn out. But there's no trying, there's no hoping. This story that we're told, this is the greatest story ever told that we're in right now. We're not hoping this is going to happen. We're not trying for this to happen. This already happened. This already happened. All we're doing is we're telling the story and we're living the story and sharing it with people. Is anyone familiar with The Secret? Even though it's gotten kind of, people have different reactions of that. The big thing that transformed my life is a few things. One is watching the original Secret, not the new Secret. The original Secret was Esther Hicks. And at that time, I was going bankrupt with my businesses. They were folding and everything else was happening. And I started doing vision board. I started playing The Secret, the original Secret, on loop over and over and over for about 2 weeks straight. I'm talking all day long, where it was so embedded in me when I'd go to sleep. And these are those things that, and I was going to show you a video that I couldn't show because the internet's not working. This last one, if anyone wants to know what it is, it's a 4-minute video, and so powerful. He talks about set and setting, and it's so powerful. For the past week, I'm doing that on loop. I'll do that on loop. It's only 4 minutes. I'll do it on loop for a couple hours in the background. Like people listen to music, I'll listen to this. And that's really powerful to do things like that where it gets in your subconscious. And then realizing that with The Secret, everything that you thoughts become things. So the way that George Bush, now Donald Trump, I feel came into power is not only for the people who love him, but it's the people who hate him and who are passionate about hate. The universe does not see whether it's for or against. All the universe knows is energy. So again, back to being activist is don't judge what other someone's doing. Focus on what you're doing. Focus on the end result. Focus on exactly what needs to be done, and make sure to not say with carnivores or omnivores they're the bad guys or whatever. You have to come up with a solution, and you have to just focus on it and be relentless with the focus of exactly what needs to be done. And the video that I was going to show you is called Set and Setting. Everything that all about manifestation is that putting yourself in an environment so it correlates and it connects to who you are and what your vision is inside. So one of those is surrounding your landscape in the proper landscape. That is by going to the right classes, but surrounding yourself with the right people, going to the right places. And so say if you're a golfer and you're in a bowling alley, you have to go to the golf course. You have to get the clubs. You have to surround yourself with incredible golfers. You have to study the game. You have to read the books. And that's what we need to do. A lot of people, just kind of sit back and do this and that. You have to be very active. It's called activism. Active. And then active in a positive way of focusing that this already happened because it already did. How did this happen? Work backwards. The entire world is vegan. How did this happen? Work backwards, and that's where we are now. And let's see, a couple of things. We'll do Q&A. And one thing too is, as far as activism, it took me 6 years to influence or have some part in one person going vegan. 6 years. And I mean, I was hardcore pissed off activist. Not even in an open way, but in my heart. 6 years. So that's a thing too, is this isn't something that's overnight of telling stories. Me talking, I'm super shy. I was never supposed to be in front of the camera. Keegan and I were trying to find people to play the character that I played because, again, it kind of had to recreate some of it. And then we realized it had to be me. And then I realized, you know what, this is not about me. I have to do things I don't want to do. So I'm in front of the camera. It turned out to be the right way, but it took a long time to develop the tools too. So just realize if you're being frustrated right now, keep working at it, keep working at it, and practice. Do wedding videos, do your own YouTube channel. If you can't be in front of a camera, like I can't do a YouTube channel, I can find someone here in Ubud, or if anyone lives in Bali, no matter where you are. I mean, you guys are vegans. Everyone who is pretty much an amazing vegan. You can find someone else who will want to be in front of that. If you want to be the photographer, the editor, take part in it. If you don't want to be anything, you want to be the producer, which I'm actually kind of becoming more so now, is collaborating with awesome people to make more things happen, then collaborate and just be whatever you're special at. Maybe you're just good at writing, but collaboration and patience that it will happen. Another thing too is setting the stage. I did Jivamukti yoga teacher training and then Kundalini yoga teacher training because I was having a frustrating time making Cowspiracy. And so I had to hone my tools, so I did yoga teacher training for a month, and that worked. That kind of got some of the stuff out, kind of the clutter and who in my life stuff, like separating myself, getting out of my box out of San Francisco. And then what really took it to the next level, I went to India and I did 30 days Kundalini yoga teacher training. Has anyone done Kundalini yoga? I highly, highly recommend doing an intensive Kundalini yoga training, even if it's a week. There's one twice a year. It's called White Tantric, and it's summer solstice and winter solstice. You are activated. Been trying to make Cowspiracy for 6 years. Went to India, did 23 days, waking up at 3 a.m. till 7 p.m., nonstop Kundalini yoga, completely activated. Within 10 months, within 2 weeks coming back, I met Keegan. I mean, talk about alignment. I met Keegan 10 months from that, finished Cowspiracy. And I owe a lot to that. And the other tool that I recommend, it's kind of controversial, but has anyone heard of landmark education? And that's one of the tools that's talk about polarizing. That's one of those. You can go both ways. Again, I don't take things. People got really into the part where you have to sell the program. I just kind of tuned that part off. It is so empowering for me. That was a huge part. There's only 3 series, and they're like, it's a cult. It's three programs. One's the first weekend, 3 days of a weekend. Then you don't talk to anyone, you never see one. Then the next time you do another one, 3 days. And then the next one, you meet once Tuesday for 2 months. And it's so powerful, I can't even underestimate that. So between those were the biggest tips I have of, kind of how to be an effective activist, is get some badass tools, like next level tools. These films would never have been done. Collaboration would never have been done. So those are the 2 things that I learned and that helped me a lot. Basically Jedi training. Then the other, I think that's almost it. So I was going to show that video, but I'm not. So I guess the final thing is I'm going to take some questions. Is that again, all we're tools is for our higher self. That's all we are. We're a tool. This is not about us. This is about something so much greater. We are on the winning side of life. We're on the winning part of history. So a lot of people say, why are you vegan? It's too late. It's too late. Through the environment or the world will never be vegan. Because you know what? I want to be part of the world's greatest story. Because I want to jump into it now, before I die. I want to be in the story and I want to be part of the story. And whether everyone reads the book or whether that person is never going to be part of this story, that in 50 years and 100 years, they're going to look back. This is the biggest, greatest movement of all time. There's been the civil rights movement, there's been the women's rights, there's been gay rights, more recently transgender rights. All of these things, not that they're all done, these things came at a time where one had to lead to the next, lead to the next, lead to the next. It's conscious evolution. The getting rid of animal agriculture, killing billions of animals, could not have happened before, say, civil rights. Couldn't have happened then. It had to happen at this time and place. It had to happen right now, and it's already happening. These other movements all led up to this greatest one of all time that's going to make the greatest story ever told, even with the Bible, come back to full circle. And then we've completed our destiny, our dharma of who we are as humans. That is how powerful this last step of the chapter in humanity is. And the thing is it already happened. It already happened. You can time travel, you look in 100 years, 200 years, whatever it is, 500 years. They're going to look at right now, starting 2012, I believe. I thought we were going to die 2012, and they realized that was the next chapter in evolution. And look back at 2012 already. In the past 4 years, everyone's been vegan, or 5. How fast this is happening. This was the next level of evolution. This is the next level of transformation. We're going through a paradigm shift. And we are part of the story. So share the story, have fun with the story, and realize that you are the hero. It's a hero's journey that Joseph Campbell is, the hero's journey of that little guy Nugget who never became a Nugget, because what happened at the end of the story, he actually rescued his mom. They found a little area where they found through a fence, and he found it. His mom came through, and then now they're on this little paddy field with tons of food, and they found a little animal sanctuary right outside in Nabud. And all because of this little nugget who was laughed at. Now he's the hero. And that's the story of that one. So we are all the heroes. We're all the hero's journey. And so act like it. Act like a hero, because you are the hero of the story. You are the ones that making this in 50, 100 years from now, they're going to look back at you guys and look back at all of us that we were the ones who did it. This is the first big chapter of it, and it's happening so fast. So you guys are making it happen. So I just want to thank all of you guys for doing this, and Bali and Ubud leading the light between like this and, like I was saying, Israel. These are just like the pillars of light, and there's all these wildfires happening of consciousness and enlightenment. And you can see them. They're all starting to overcome. And actually, the one last thing I'll say, this is a real important thing that I learned just a year ago. Has anyone ever learned the 10% law of transformation? You only need 10% of something with humans and something with all animals. You only need 10% of a society to not, say, let's use veganism, not to become vegan, but to believe, not even to become, but to believe that, say, everyone's going to be vegan. You don't have to be you don't even have to be vegan. Only 10% of a population has to believe something's going to happen, and then, bam, it does. Every single other movement, at that top part, it was never going to happen. Slavery was always going to happen. Women were never going to have equality. Gay rights was never going to happen, ever, ever, ever. And look what happened, especially if you talk to your parents or grandparents. Like, how did that happen between like no one and all of a sudden, bam? And right now, especially when you go to Israel, they're hovering around literally 7 to 8%. They're only about 2% away from that 10%. Bam, there's a society that happens. And the other part is it too, as I was mentioning, how powerful thoughts become things and energetic, is that some of the most powerful animal activists on this planet are people who hate vegans. Because why do they hate them? They know this is happening. They put out in this consciousness that this movement is happening. Everyone who tries to diss this film or Cowspiracy and talk about this, the Animal Agriculture Alliance that are supposedly the enemies or the other side, they're the biggest animal activists. They don't even realize it, because the people who hate the vegans are the same people like who hate the Donald Trumps. They're the ones making this movement even bigger. The reason why What the Health became, was at a meeting with Netflix, one of the most successful documentaries in the history of Netflix ever, is not for the people, the few vegans who watched it. It was that the film is hated and done so many articles and so many posts, and it's that energy that's so much put into it that the movie exploded. It is all about energy. And so it's super important to realize where you put your energy. Thoughts become things, and realize that the enemy might actually be our biggest supporter. So just raise your voice, and if you get in a conversation with someone or an argument like my niece, those are the ones that are this close. They're this close because they triggered something. The ones that yell at you the most, that are the meanest to you, they're even closer, because they know to keep deep down this is happening and that they want to be a part of it, and they are just at that level. They've woken up. And so we're at that point. So you guys are the ones leading the way. I'll just leave it at that. And thank you so much. And I'll be some questions. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah. Hey, I just want to say thank you. I really acknowledge what you've shared and that you've opened up so much about the behind the scenes of your journey. So I guess my question is, when you know a lot, I mean, clearly you are aware spiritually of what's going on the planet, and clearly you've also grounded it down to reach a mainstream audience. So I suppose I would just love to hear your perspective on communicating things in a way that creates impact while remaining honest and authentic to what you're aware of.
Well, I think a big one is to listen to your audience. So if it's just say your friend, is to ask them. I think the best way to communicate is through listening, and I think with these films, when we're editing this, you're hundreds of hours, thousands of hours editing, and you take it from that side, the other side. It's not about the vegan side; it's about their side. So we're listening. When we do test runs of these films, you would not believe how much they change from A to B to the final edit. Purposely not one single vegan in the film. So if it's just with a friend and you're talking about something you want to influence, is you ask what are they interested in? And that's what I say. This movement, every other single movement had only one single thing going for it: had ethics. This movement has ethics, it has health, and it has the environment, it has the sustainability and the survival of our entire species. It has all three things going for it. And so what other movement had that? None. That's why this is happening so fast. So ask them, are they mostly, or if you know them, mostly into the environment, mostly into health or ethics, and then come from their level, ask them questions and then kind of come from what you've learned. If that answers your question. And then also do your research. I think, just be really knowledgeable of being able to back that up. I mean, that's a whole other thing of anything you've seen where they try to bash the film of saying some of the facts aren't true. We're getting into that, and right now we're opening up a debate for everyone who's ever written an article trying to bash the facts of the film. We're literally getting ready to do an open debate invitation with a third-person leading the debate against one of the doctors because they're all BS. That film is so hardcore, so hardcore deep in facts and studies of independent studies. Answer your question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And just another thing that I take away from what you've shared there is it sounds like a key is kind of becoming a Jedi of all levels in a way where you can understand the depth of what you're doing, but also meet people at that grounded level, know the science, be able to hit it on every single level and go for it to the fullest.
I know people, we have on our both those movies, they have an awesome facts page, and they're super powerful. And we actually just this week, remember this week, the guy I'm making the next film with, he is dissecting What the Health into the entire film into small little segments, into memes, into short clips, and we're going to be over the next 2 months, if not 3 months, be putting out all these little clips. So if something will happen, it'll be an easy way to search on YouTube. Oh, protein. Go on YouTube and it'll be our protein clip. Oh, vegan athletes, da-da-da. So that's a fun tool to use. That's coming out soon. But yeah, getting your tools down. Yeah.
First up, sincere props for the amount of epic work that you've done to date, and I look forward to seeing, I'm sure we all do, what you bring out next. I'd just like to chat on, obviously, once you've created the documentary, that's kind of the first hurdle. The second hurdle is distributing it and getting it out. And I'm sure in the beginning, obviously, with your first few films, it's really difficult because I'm sure a lot of people that you approach have a more traditional mindset. Can you chat a bit around the challenges and any tips and insights around, now that you've created this epic piece of content, how the hell to get it out without Netflix on your side? Yeah,
that's the big thing. It's one thing to make the film, but that's just a tool. It's about how to get it so people can actually use the tools, and it's that everyone who watched the film and spreading it, that's where the impact happens. So with Cowspiracy, fortunately, we just hit a trigger where one of the things that we did, we made a powerful trailer. I mean, we made the film, But if you can make a very powerful trailer, one of Keegan's favorite things that he's really good at, he's taught me, is how to make a powerful trailer. We just love film. We love storytelling. We love film. Passionate about storytelling. And he'll watch this, I can't remember what it is even called, trailers.com. And he'll watch hours of trailers, just trailers after trailers after trailers. So one of those, we realized to get this film out, we have to make a very impactful trailer. So if you look at both of those, I think they're pretty good trailers. And hats off to Keegan, he really led that. Other than that, that's something about that. We did an Indiegogo campaign. Did anyone contribute or help out with either of those campaigns? That's a really great way to do it, because then you have an engaged production company where now all of a sudden we have 1,500 producers and their name is in the credits. Look at the credits. So doing a crowdfunding campaign in anything that you do, make them, create, again, collaboration. So that was a grassroots thing that those 1,500 people were so passionate about being a part of, their names in the film, their producers, and then spreading the word through social media and our incredible community. It just kind of had a grassroots thing and exploded up. But honestly, for Cowspiracy, it was Leonardo DiCaprio watched it before we even released it. He got a copy of it, and he said, "I want this film to go to Netflix." So he was honorary producer. People think he gave us money and did that. He was honorary producer. So that was just lucky. But I think how to tell a great story in a trailer is a huge thing. 2 minutes, how to tell a powerful story.
You mentioned that these two movies are part of the trilogy, and I wanted to know more about the concept, like when was it born and why you see it as a trilogy, and what's coming up next.
So Cowspiracy was going to be one film all in one. It was going to be basically environment, health, ethics. And as you see in Cowspiracy, it's environmental film, there's a touch of ethics into it, and a touch of health. We have the funny part about dairy. And then when you go to What the Health, it's a health film, but then you look at the holistic health, the environmental health. When we go to North Carolina, it's a little bit environment, and then it's a little bit of ethics. So the missing part was that this was all going to be in Cowspiracy, and we actually had an edit. And again, when we showed people, not part of the community, we had a part where, my favorite part in the whole film was where after the chicken got killed, I said that I studied yoga. I went to yoga teacher training, and I wanted to hear what some yogis would say. So we interviewed a yogi that eats animals, it eats meat and dairy, and then a vegan yogi from Jivamukta Yogi. And so first we interviewed, she's from Anna Forest Yoga, who promotes it actually and thinks as long as you pray over it, it's okay. This bizarre thing. And so right from the get-go, I asked her some stuff about ahimsa, and then I say, rather than what meat do you eat, I said, what animals do you eat? That's another thing too, is how do you phrase things? How do you get that disconnect? It's not meat, it's animals. So and then she started talking, and she was thrown back by that, and she started naming the animals, chickens, cows, and that was weird. And then I started saying the typical things, what about, dogs? And then, would you kill your own animal? And then she was kind of tailing off, she's almost crying. I was really, because she's so sweet, I was doing this as nice as possible. I mean, when you see these, I do this as nicely as possible when I do these interviews, because they're tough. But then she said she would, eat a dog, and then she realized she has a dog, and that's when she started crying for a second. And it's just, you can't answer these, especially if you're a proclaimed yogi. How can you possibly say you may be an asana teacher, you produce asana practice, but yoga is 8 limbs. Asana is one part of the 8 limbs. And so how can you rationalize ahimsa with that? And then anyway, I asked the exact same questions to Jivamukti, and pretty much all Jivamukti yogis are all vegan. The exact same questions, and she just flowed of just truth and beauty. What animals do you eat? She started laughing. I don't eat animals. Like, I just talked about ahimsa. Why don't you eat them? And then just beauty, beauty, beauty. And then all we did is edit it back and forth. And it's so powerful, and it's so powerful. And then we talked to a Tibetan monk who's vegan. And Dalai Lama eats animals, like quite a bit, so, which is bizarre, but this one isn't. And he talked about in his own way of how beautiful it is and how to be at your truth. And so anyway, so when we did the testings, that threw them way off. Like, how is this environmental film, and all of a sudden you have this bizarre ethics thing? And I fought tooth and nails. I'm like, this is my favorite part in the whole film, but the majority of the people thought that was a weird part in our testing. So at the last, I had to take it out. I still haven't even shown anyone. I realized, wow, you know what? This has to be 3 movies. And then thank goodness that happened, because if that would have been in there, it was so powerful that we might have been okay with everything. And we realized, okay, we have 3 films here. And so this film is a super fun one, because you can debate, especially medical facts with What the Health, you can debate that all day long. There's so ways to manipulate studies, especially when you have a lot of money. But when you have an interview like that, it's not even about facts. It's about, a disconnect, putting light on that disconnect and removing it to connect that people just don't. And so it's a really exciting project. And that'll be done towards the end of next year. I don't really announce that. I know it's on video, but it's kind of under wraps because there's been some weird things that happen with stuff that we're doing. But that's why I'm not really on social media too. I'm just like focused on getting this done. But towards the beginning of 2019. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, brother, how you dealt with the negativity, the haters, and any personal attacks that came your way after releasing all your movies and docos.
I was just really aware of like I was saying, the energy gives it power. I learned that from between Lady Gaga, Madonna, Donald Trump, and George Bush. Really aware of that, and we knew going out that people were going to argue. And I'm like, you know what? They have no idea they're going to want to blow up this movie. And they always have the same things that they say, that 1 egg equals 5 cigarettes, without even realizing that's based on a Harvard study and another study comparing the two of correlative artery plaque disease, comparing the two. And so it makes someone want to watch the film. They hear like, oh my gosh, film's getting talked shit of, it's this and this, but I gotta watch it. Oh my God, everyone's talking about it. And then they watch the film, and there's 137 facts in this film. If you go to our sources page, 137 facts. And the part that you never can argue with, when we go to North Carolina, when you talk to the people who live there, and that little baby who she's with has about 4 weird diseases, and he talks about, do I eat bacon? She's like, no, I don't eat bacon. You talk about the vegan athletes, all these other things. You go to the slaughterhouse, and the pus filled, and it spreads out. And so we're really aware of, like, whatever makes people watch the film, when they watch the film, it is so much more about 4 or 5 facts that get debated. So we were aware of that even before, and so we braced ourselves. In Cowspiracy, we had help bracing ourselves because we got already negative feedback for that. So I guess that's the answer to that. And other than that is, it's just all about focusing on what we have to do. A lot of times, like, almost sidetrack of replying to some of these, and it's like, that's exactly what they want. Like, we're on a path of where we're going. I'm talking about as a movement. And anyone else, say that Donald, again, it's in the U.S., because here is Trump. Like, don't worry about Trump. Worry about what you're doing. The whole point of what he's trying to do is divert you so you talk about him. That's power. What you do is you stay on your course and you focus on what you want. And what we're doing is we're building a community that people want to join, be a part of. So it's not about what they don't want, it's to be a part of what we do want. So it's that enlightening part at the end of the films. So the negative part, we just kind of brush it off, but now it's been a lot with a lot of articles coming out. Everybody asks us, so now we're going to do an open debate with everyone who's ever written an article and make it very public. And 2 people have already backed down after the whole time. Oh, we want to debate them. And they won't, because the facts are, the truth is the truth. So.
Thank you very much. What I found most powerful in both movies were not so much the facts that people can debate, but those silences and silences and rejections of people to answer your questions. So when you confront, I don't know, anyone with like, how come you receive money from these people, or what do you say to this, and they just kick you out or refuse to talk to you. So I really like that. But my question was also relates to the example that you just gave about 2 yogis. Do you do your interlocutors give some kind of informed consent to you and are able to retract? So once you record and then they're not happy with how the interview went and be like, okay, I don't want this to be a part of the movie. Or it's like, it's done.
They signed it before. So with Cowspiracy, it was a big advantage with just Keegan and I because we're so unassuming. People ask, one of the critiques of What the Health, oh, you wear a hat and you wear this and you're trying to interview a person. And we're like, that's how we got these interviews, you know? Like, and that's how we get the answers to these questions because we're really unassuming. And so, what was I going to say with that? Wait, what was the last part of that you said? Oh yeah, the signing. No, they can't because they signed before. Like Cowspiracy, when we sent out emails, it's a film about sustainability and the leading causes of factors of environmental destruction. That's the email. That is the truth. What's the number one destruction by far? Animal agriculture. With this film, when we reach out, we don't do it. We have a line producer, someone else do it. We're making a film on health and the greatest cause of diseases. We mentioned a few things, and diet will be in there. So it's the truth, and that's a very important part. You can't lie. If you lie and they say something, no, you get sued. So that was a huge thing, and it's always nervous. Sometimes the biggest, most nervous we're shaking is Michael Pollan, because he's, at the time too especially, he was just voted one of the 100 top influential people in the whole world. And we thought that was going to be an interview, one where it was going to be very confrontational. And we sent that. Every time we give it to someone on the other side or whatever you want to say, it's definitely, and then they sign it and like, okay, sweet. But you have to have someone sign it. Something happened recently with this new film. We're filming in India too. Anyone know Muji? He's a big guru guy, but he eats animals. And so we did an interview, not me, but the people we're working with did an interview with him. And he's a big deal. He's huge. So they did not sign till after they'll see the final cut. They're not going to write off on it. But we realize the way we're still going to do it is we're going to have the footage where we go up all the way to meet him, and we're going to give the final edit to them and see if he will use it. Because he didn't say anything that bad. He's actually really nice, but I don't think he's going to allow it because the questions we ask are very difficult. But it's still going to be powerful when we go up, and all of a sudden we're sitting down to them, and then the film blacks out. At this point, Muji, we tell the truth. Muji's gatekeepers said we're not allowed to use this interview, so we cannot use the interview. Now you never know. How powerful is that? So it's one of those, no matter what. And who to learn that from? Michael Moore. I mean, definitely Michael Moore is an influence on the filmmaking, and that's what he realized. Whether you talk or not, Greenpeace doesn't talk. These don't talk. It's almost what they don't say speaks more than what they do. The one tip I say, if anyone's ever doing these type of interviews with anyone, whether it's your best friend and you have a YouTube channel and it's just for fun, pure fun, or it's interviews very tough like this one, is learn this from Errol Morris. There's a new documentary coming out on Netflix in about 2 months. Errol Morris, he's the biggest influence on me, hands down, a documentary filmmaker. Learn this from him. What he does is he'll ask a question. He'll always be behind a camera, especially his old ones like in the 80s, 90s. He'll be like, tell me about your dog. And then they'll say something that's always your first reaction. Anytime someone asks you a question of something that you always know, you answer the question, oh, I love my dog. And And then they answer the question. This is what happened in Cowspiracy in every interview. After they answer the question, there's silence. I'm looking at the person, they're looking at me, there's a camera on, and it's so awkward. Keegan hates this because it's so hard. I actually kind of like it. It's again, putting myself in situations to get used to it. And you're just looking at them, and it's so awkward. I mean, you can really feel the tension. And then they're just thinking like, okay, there's a camera. Obviously, I didn't answer the question. And I do this for fun. And the comedic people do this too. And then whatever they finally say after that, that is what we use. Because that's the part that's raw. That's the part where now everything's down. Nothing is subliminally robotic answered out. And then that's the part that's super raw. And that's the part that you see in Cowspiracy. especially in Cowspiracy, especially at the end where the one that you see this the most is where we're at Amazon Watch, and she says the whole time about, she talks forever, and then I do the thing where I'm, she's like, oh my God, she's going in circles, just like the same, da 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 da. And then finally she broke through, and then you see at the very end, she's down like this. I think she thinks the interview's over. She's down like this, and then she's just speaking the truth. And that's what's funny about the truth, too. That's why this film's so fun, is the truth, it just comes off so easily. So that's a big recommendation I do, whatever you're doing, having a fun YouTube channel or something serious, ask a question, be awkwardly silent, and wait for that next part that comes out. Super fun. And it is very difficult, because it is awkward.
Hi. Something I loved about what you said was that, when you went to those steakhouses or not vegan restaurants and getting out of your bubble and being in the world and, asking, hey, do you have a vegan menu? And speaking up in that way, this isn't my profession. I'm just a vegan person in the world, and I'm the only vegan person really in my community of friends and other people that I spend time with. And I'm kind of at that place that you described where, early in being vegan, how you're kind of angry and all fired up. And I feel very passionate right now, but I feel like sometimes it can be counterproductive to being a voice. And what advice would you give to kind of how to maybe be a more effective communicator? I mean, I know you already talked about it a lot, but anything else?
That reminded me of a couple of things. Is that, again, this isn't about us. I mean, probably of anything, other than health, environment too, it's about the animals, something about this bigger than us. They don't want us to be mad, history doesn't want us to be mad. They don't want us to lose our temper. They don't want us to be pissed off. It's not doing them any good. And one of the things that remind me of, that I was going to say earlier, is something learned from the studies of Jesus Christ. I wasn't grown up Catholic. I wasn't grown anything, nothing at all. But I'm really a huge fan of Jesus Christ as him, as his story. And his whole thing, what I love is, he'd sit down with Judas. He realized he went down through the 40 days. He honed his powers, his skills, that he could be around someone who is, say, full of hatred, full of negative energies. A lot of vegans are at heart, we're empaths. We're empathetic. That's why we're vegan. We can feel the others. We feel the others. And it's so hard for vegans, especially ethical vegans, to put themselves in a situation where you're in front of a barbecue. But again, you have to realize this isn't about you. So you do those skills. I went to these yoga teacher trainings, and the lessons that Jesus taught is that he's not letting someone else affect his vibration. So all the people, I can't be around that person. They're giving me such negative vibrations, it's bringing me down. And now, oh my God, I don't want to be around these people. I can't believe all these people are eating meat. I have to be go to my vegan bubble. It's all hunky dory. Where he purposely would put himself in, because he had the skills where he's radiating his knowledge, his wisdom, his light. He's putting on them, because when you're saying someone is sending their negative energy to you, you just gave them power. That's why the whole thing, too, is, that's another one I learned, actually, particularly at Landmark. You give yourself the victim, and you're giving them the power. It's like, no, you sit with that person, and you shine the light on them, not by, yelling or that, just even by your presence. They're not putting anything on you. If they're putting anything on you, it's because you're allowing it. And if you can't do that, then do your yoga teacher training, do your Kundalini teacher training, do your running, do your lifting, do whatever it is you have to do. Put yourself in awkward situations, because, again, it doesn't happen right away. Especially if you're not used to it, it's keep on doing it. So I would say really practice at it. Like I said, it took me 6 years to influence someone to be vegan at all. So I wasn't, this didn't come naturally for me. But those are the things I learned that I wish someone would have told me, is to do that.
Was it your cousin or your niece, the 6-year-old?
It's my niece.
Is she vegan?
She's close. She's one of those, now she's, maybe she was 7, now she's 15. This is right when I was young. I was like militant vegan. She is close. She's one of those. She doesn't want to know. She doesn't want to watch the videos. One of the big things that turned me vegan right away when I learned about the environment, then I heard about this video. Anyone seen Meet Your Meat? It's basically Earthlings in 12 minutes. And my ex at the time, she watched it and she was vegan. She's like, there's this thing called Meet Your Meat. And I was so hardcore addicted to cheese. I couldn't even be vegan one day. Like I really was hardcore cheeseaholic. I was not gonna watch it. And finally I was eating a cheese pizza and it came up on my thread or whatever. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna watch, it's only 12 minutes. And if anyone watches that, Meet Your Meat, narrated by Alec Baldwin, so funny. I threw the cheese pizza across and I mean, I was done. I wanted it out of every single cell of my body. And I think she knows that too, because I was asking my sister, and she's 15 now, because I asked her at the time, she was 7. I wanted to show her that then. No, she's too young. And that's the interesting thing that we're discovering now. She's too young, but she's old enough to need a dead carcass, an animal, and to, like, it's so bizarre. But right now, she's still at that point where I don't, she knows like what I do. She's not vegan yet, but she's definitely like so borderline. She just doesn't know about dairy, the dairy industry. And everyone's either, also too, again, everyone is already vegan. Everything is already vegan. This world's already happened. So when you meet someone they're not, you're either a pre-gan or a vegan. It's only one or the other. There's no one else.
So in the past few years, we've seen a lot of institutions exposed for having a lack of integrity, speaking a lack of truth, such as. There's a part of, when this started to happen, there was a part of me that just thought, okay, we're losing our idols. But what I realize now is that revolutions don't come from institutions. They're not born of institutions. It's actually our rebellion against institutions. And it seems like this is a big part of your work, is to expose institutions and false idols and reveal the truth, reveal the light, as you're putting it. So when you did that for environmental orgs, there's a part of me again that just went, oh no, not them as well, you know. But you know, moments after or even during watching the film, I was like, this is great, this is great. My own organization stands for yoga, you know, it stands for integrity and for truth. And people are going to start to gravitate towards it. So I want to hear your opinion on false idols and whether the environmental movement is actually starting to have more integrity because of your work.
The vegan movement? Or what was the last thing you said?
Well, the environmental orgs that you spoke to, you know, and don't have agribusiness on top of their agenda.
Yeah, the thing of all these films, you know, we say, oh, it's either fear tactics or exposing, you know, why are you going after them? The reason I feel those films are really powerful is we'd expose it, but then we move on, and then at the end we show a solution. If those would have just been that, and we focused on a lot of people, why don't you follow the money in Cowspiracy? With that green paste, they started selling that. Why don't you go that? Because we've acknowledged it, we address it. Now, what is the future that we want to show people? How can we inspire people if people want to join? And so it's definitely, I want to say, exposing the false idols, but it's just so hard to hide, you know, hide the truth anymore. So they're being exposed, and this next film is doing a little bit more than that. But the environmental community has been, I thought, after Cowspiracy, had been a little bit more transformative in their development. When I travel to Europe, I see it happening really fast because there's just not such a stronghold of the meat and dairy industry that have influence in these organizations, like huge, you know, that's the whole film. Meat and dairy industry have such a huge hold on these organizations. Rather than be enemies with the enemy, be friends with the enemy, befriend the enemy, infiltrate the enemy. That's, I mean, what the health. I keep on thinking that way. So what the health. Point back here. But that's the whole thing with what the health is infiltrating and, you know, combining one, so you don't even know who the good guys and bad guys are. Product of doubt. But it's happening. I think it's happening even faster with the health community of the vegan side of the movement, because it's just so obvious. There's so much obvious studies that are coming out more and more. The environmental one, did anyone hear about that NASA one that they just finally, NASA discovered that it was proved that methane emissions from cows farting was 11% more than they previously thought the high was in 2006. That's huge. That's a big thing that we got for Cowspiracy. So it's one of those, again, we don't really get caught up in today's arguments of this film and Cowspiracy. We always say the truth prevails. The truth prevails. So I'm not going to argue for right now. Let's argue in 10 years from now, because there's going to be nothing to argue about. So it's just, and it's happening fast, validating it. So these old organizations, the Greenpeaces, the Sierra Clubs, are not going to be around much anymore. The new one's coming up really quick after James Cameron is doing 3 or 4 avatars. And after he does those avatars, he has an Avatar Alliance that I feel is going to be the biggest environmental nonprofit in the entire world, like by far. And he's hardcore vegan, and he knows the truth. And when you have your own money, he's not afraid of that, and he has more money than all Greenpeace. So like anything, the IBMs go away, the Apples come and go. If you're out with the times, that's the thing. Well, we're on the right side of history. We're already on the other side of history. When I do go to these barbecues, it's like I'm looking at a black and white television show. It's like bizarre that you do it, and you're just like, do you realize you're literally part of the past? It's almost like you went to a slave auction, and today, like you literally are living in a past life, and we are the new. Like we are what the future is. We're part of the future story, and the last second doesn't matter. At least you're on the part of the history that this is unfold, that we're on the right side of it. And so we are the norm. I mean, that's what's cool. Just even if, 2-3 years ago we were considered weird, not only we're normal, we're thriving thanks to your talk today too, and of all the athletes and everyone is just shining light on it. We are the norm. We are the future, and they know it. They know it. Everyone knows it. The secret's out of the bag. We're the answer. So it's time to celebrate that and like really have fun with it. 'Cause I think it's a key part of it. Yeah.
Hi. So I lost a lot of respect for a lot of these big organizations, Greenpeace being one of them. And I'm just wondering if they have done anything in trying to repair their image after this has been put out.
I asked because I'm in I just moved to San Francisco. They have a big base in that whole community there. Luckily, that film was filmed there because we would have had to travel there about every week. And I asked friends who are in that, and they say it gets talked about all the time, but they're still fighting. It's almost like ego. They don't want to admit that this film that kind of bashed them, that it's going to make them turn if they do. It's almost like I just watched the Vietnam documentary series when the U.S. pulled out of Vietnam. They had to say it in a way where it wasn't because we lost, it was because of some other thing. I think the ego is so big and that their backers are so strong. But it is happening. I was on a debate with someone after Cowspiracy, and this is about 2 years after the film, and Amazon watched, they did Q&A. The people who were in the film, 2 of them were in the audience, and they just started yelling like, do you know how many phone calls and emails we get every single day about your film and that we don't do this? And I said, well, did you put it on your website now? That's not the point. And I looked up while they're talking, I'm like, what? All you have to do is put this on your website. That was the crazy thing about Cowspiracy, is all you have to do is put it on your website. You don't have to do a campaign. That's still all we're asking for. And they wouldn't even do that, but we hear that all the meetings and people, every time they have demonstrations, there's people with banners. So, I mean, it's a matter of time. If not, again, they're not going to be around much longer. So, there's new ones coming up. Center of Biological Diversity. These really cool ones in Europe are coming up. So,
Hi. Thank you very much for all your messages. I completely relate to this revolution that you mentioned that, for example, gay rights in the past was like, no way, but now it's happening, or women rights in the past, no way, but it happened at the end. So my concern at the moment is, what do you think about pets? Because
pigs?
Pets like cats and dogs.
Pets.
Because I went vegan, little, of course. I meat first, and then chicken, blah, blah, blah. Finally cheese, hard, but I finally did it. And of course, I won't buy leather anymore or feather pillows, but my cats, So do you think that in the future we should stop having pets because feeding them is not vegan?
I mean, it's a tough one because even, I know some animal rights hardcore where they say no spade or neuter because that's doing something they don't. But I mean, I do believe in that. I have a cat partner. I don't even say I have a cat. If anything, the cat has me. My cat has me. And so it's not even really my pet. If anything, I feel I'm his pet. Especially cats. They're really fed. Dogs are a little different. Like, I'm his pet. He has me. He lives at my house, or he lives at his house. I live at his house, He's the landlord, straight up. And he's a rescue too. So I mean, that's the other thing is like go rescues. If anyone does eat, you say your friends do eat eggs. I always thought for the first, I've been vegan 10 years. I thought for 4 years, even when I was wanting to make Cowspiracy, I was familiar with animal sanctuaries. They're always trying to have their chickens, their egg-laying chickens, be adopted. And I always thought I was going to do that. I always thought I was going to be on a have my own sanctuary and have that. And I'm totally fine with vegans do that because they actually do some of the sanctuaries because they're rescued and the eggs are just sitting there as long as they don't eat them. But then now, especially after this film, but even after, it's just, eggs are disgusting. So I wouldn't do that anymore. But I lost track thinking about eggs.
No, in my case, for example,
about pets.
I'm super cat lover, as you can see. Everything I have is cats, and I know dogs can be vegan, and I love that idea. I have seen like Instagram accounts vegan my vegan dog, and it's so hurtful for me. Like, oh, it's so nice, but I have cats, and I'm a cat lover, so I cannot give them carrots. They need the taurine or so. In the future, I think maybe people should stop breeding cats, or
For sure,
because
definitely.
when I go to supermarket, it's like everything is vegan, but then I have to get the cat food in.
There's some vegan cat food that's coming up, and like everything, they found out it's taurine and carotene, and if the cat won't eat it, at least you can. I think Keegan, they have 2 cats, him and his partner. They give part of the cat food with it, and then try to incorporate as much as you can. So at least you're killing, like, say, half the animals, the rescues. It's tough. But the point with the chicken one is anyone your friends who are vegetarian, dairy, there's absolutely no way. I just saw someone put a post about ahimsa dairy, which is absolutely, utterly absurd if anything, for the environment. Because if you don't kill your animals, then you're destroying all wildlife, because every county is about 10 acres. But tell them to rescue a chicken from a local animal sanctuary. They have hundreds, if not thousands, of chickens that are looking for a home. That's the only way I feel good about someone eating eggs. So that's a good thing to tell a vegetarian. Yeah. But yeah, pets, neuter and spade and neuter.
Thank you.
Only rescue.
I have a question that probably relates to a lot of animal rights activists. For me, when I'm being an animal rights activist, it's really hard to not be emotionally burned out. So as I can imagine for you doing all of these documentaries, you've seen a lot of things that probably make you emotionally tired. So what do you do in order to feel positive and to continue doing the work that you're doing?
One, I just really have a vision that this is such an exciting time to live in that we were waiting for. And even being vegan 10 years, it was 4 or 5 years ago, you just couldn't see this happening. And now it's happening so fast. And to really realize that and to really believe, not only believe in it, really believe and see it. So focusing your energy, that's what Cowspiracy did. First part of Cowspiracy, focusing on all the bad, wait, maybe let's shift our attention. What is happening? And then once you see what is happening, then just focus on that. Oh my Lord, there's everything that's happening. There's so much studies that, if there's there's what is it called, Animal Planet or Vegan News or something like that .com, and it just shows, it's kind of like good news rather than the news we're fed is all negative. There's so much positive news that's tenfold over the bad, and it's still bad, but it's nothing like it was 10, 20 years ago. So just always focusing on the incredible things that are happening makes me feel really, really good. Traveling around, meeting all the people, and every time I go back to a place, seeing a double, triple. And other than that, being, my whole life isn't just animal activism. I love film, like hardcore. I love film, and I like doing other things as well. So just having a nice balance in life, so that you become a better activist. Stepping away on purpose, especially when you're making film and you have a writer's block, you have to step out of the block. And again, sometimes you do things where, you wouldn't even normally do. Where again, for the animals, I learned this from George Carlin. Honestly, I used to smoke quite a bit of marijuana when I was younger. And that led me to some of the stuff leading to Cowspiracy, of the different angles of looking at things differently. But I wasn't very productive in life. I wasn't very productive. But I had that part of looking at something completely different. And I realized I wanted to have my life take a different level the next left. And then so I stopped altogether. And I remember George Carlin, the comedian philosopher, he said he did the same thing. He used to be, basically smoke pot all the time. And it gave him a different perspective. And he realized he was losing it because you just go downhill. It's a drug like anything else. And so what he did is at the very end of it, he'll write an entire set, a whole series. At the very end, when he's done, then he'll smoke a tiny little bit. And then you'll see a complete another section and completely change all these things that you would never see. So rather you don't have to do that with marijuana, you do that with yoga. You do that, I drive San Francisco and LA all the time. I do that on the Highway 5. And when the films are done, honestly, both of those, and I don't even smoke pot hardly at all, when those films are, I think, done, I do smoke a little bit, just like George Carlin. And after I think the film is done, especially with What the Health, I wrote notes. I remember one time I counted 140 different edits when I thought the film was done. And that was just smoking like a tiny. So again, it's not even, looking at things from different perspective, whether that's like, again, I'm not promoting that, but even I go to yoga and I'm in Shavasana, I'll think of that something. It's not like doing that because I know a lot of straight edge. But that's a huge help for me, storytelling, looking at different perspectives, putting yourselves in different situations.
This is it's very sensitive moment for me. 35 years ago was my first activist act. I actually sat in front of the City Hall of Tel Aviv dressed in cabbage leaves. And a daughter of a psychiatrist and an army man. It didn't go down very well in the family. Now, it was all pre-internet, of course, and pre-social media, and maybe somebody took a black and white picture of this, but yeah, which is probably my father broke his camera or something. But here I am, and here we are now, and it's just amazing. And I must say that through your films, and I was always able to send people, you see, did you hear what he said? Did you look? Did you watch the film? And there were facts, all of a sudden were facts, and it wasn't just, so it was great to have it. We grew with us here, and I'm really, if you notice above the door of Earth Cafe, there is a saying, "One peaceful world through nutrition." And this was something I heard when I was 19, which was 33 years ago. It was in the Lower East Side. There were 5 people in the room. One of them was Sharon Life from Jivamukti. Yeah. The other was Woody Harrelson. We actually used to do yoga together, and Madonna was in the room back in her macrobiotic days. Yes.
Oh, nice.
That was the idea, and that was a message that was spread between us, between the 5 people that were sitting in the room. I think a month later, Deva Parmel came out with her CD, and then again, only 5 people came to hear her playing. So it's actually history in the making, and all of a sudden being in the mainstream, and this is people actually enjoying what we're doing, and we don't look like underweight, white, pale people, because that's what used to be a vegan restaurant. If there was 30 years ago, if you walked into a vegan restaurant in New York, in Israel there wasn't any, and there wasn't any shop that was selling any brown rice or beans or anything like this. I think my mother imported soy from the U.S. when we were kids, so that's 35 years ago, or more. So it's very. I hope we can have you here again, and to watch your film again. And you're still going to show your film this week, right?
Yeah, I think
this weekend, tomorrow?
Yeah, and I'll do a Q&A, but yes, most of them. Yeah, it just reminded me one thing, is like one of the biggest things as an activist to do is to glow, like rather, you don't go vegan, you glow vegan. And that's the most powerful thing, is, being just showing up and just like radiating light. And the big thing of being vegan is you can never, number one rule, never be sick. You're never allowed to be sick, ever. If you're sick, then dive in a hole, do not talk to anyone other than your vegan friends, like, I'm sick right now. I'm sick, I think I have a cold. Don't tell anyone. But I think that's what happens, just, inviting That's an awesome story.
Thank you very much. And I've done the Hallmark education 25 years ago.
Oh,
and
yeah?
Kundalini, yes.
Nice. There's a interesting documentary on that, but that's one of those, landmark. And it's the third one. It's the first one and the third one. The third one's called self-activation, self-expression leadership program. That mixed with Kundalini yoga, like talk about activation. So I highly recommend those two. But
yes, but I must say something that for me to go actually to a restaurant where there is meat is being grilled, it's impossible because it's for me it's flesh. It's the same thing as burning people. Yes, it's be the same thing, and that's I cannot do. I cannot sit in a steakhouse and order something vegan knowing that it's been cooked in the same pot and cut on the same board. And so just 2 days before I gave birth, I was in a dinner that there was meat, and I only touched the water, and I got typhus and salmonella, and that's because they cut the lemon on the same cutting board that they cut the chicken. So not even that. Yes.
well, just want to say, okay, that was about it. But thank you so much for having me, and what an incredible dynasty and everything that you're doing here, all across Bali. So thank you. I mean, you're making the how. That's a big reason why this is happening so fast. The how is becoming so easy. All the vegan food and the vegan cheeses and all this, and it's so easy and so fun. Just celebrate where we're at right now. It's like finally we got to this point. Now from here, it is so easy. It was the whole part leading up to this point right now, 2017. Now it's a part to celebrate and to lead the way. So thank you guys.
And also I applaud for the crowd because there's so much conscious people here. Yes, and this is what it's bring us all together.
Thank you so much. All right, that's about it. Thank you so much. I'll be around. The vegan movement is growing exponentially fast, literally exponential. It's like not kind of going like this, it's going like da, 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 da. I was mentioning earlier, every movement has its time and place. Civil rights, women's rights, gay rights, most recently transgender rights. And everyone had to lead up to this movement, I feel. It's making a huge difference. Making a huge difference for the planet, our health, and if anything, the most important, the animals who don't have a voice, that they have a voice through us. So it's making a massive difference, and it's to help with everyone doing it all together. And so it's just an exciting time to be a part of it, because we're part of history right now. We're on the right side of history. This is happening. It's happening so fast. It essentially already happened. Now it's almost the time to enjoy this part happening, because kind of like that 100th monk, they already got transformed. The 10% already happened. So it's a great time to be a part of it. The audience's response is really good, some good questions. Everybody seems engaged and passionate about, excited about where we're at right now. So that's a good thing to see. So I feel pretty good. I'm really grateful to be at this festival. And again, it's so exciting to be around everyone doing it all together.